Good afternoon, this is Hiker Dude Dad. Welcome to what's left of Centralia, Pennsylvania. Centralia is a borough and a near ghost town. We're in Columbia County, Pennsylvania. The population of Centralia declined from 1,000 people in 1980 to just 5 residents in 2020. A coal mine fire has been burning under this borough since 1962. All real estate was claimed under eminent domain in 1992 and condemned by Pennsylvania. Centralia's zip code was discontinued by the Postal Service in 2002. Right now, believe it or not, on this gravel path, this used to be Poplar Street and it intersected with Peach Street. Perhaps a bustling neighborhood back in the day. Now it's being slowly reclaimed by nature. So the area had a few owners from 1793 to the 1830s. In 1832, Jonathan Faust opened the Bull's Head Tavern, which gave the town its first name, Bull's Head. In 1842, the land was bought by the Locust Mountain Coal and Iron Company. Alexander Ray, a mining engineer, moved his family in and began planning a village, laying out streets and lots for development. The Mine Run Railroad was built in 1834 to transport coal out of the valley. By 1863, there were 5 mines in Centralia. Alexander Ray was murdered in his buggy by members of the Molly Maguires on October 17th, 1868. During a trip between Centralia and Mount Carmel. That was 157 years ago in 3 days. Today is October 14th. The 3 killers were eventually hanged in Bloomsburg 10 years later. More violence occurred over the years as Centralia was a hotbed of Molly Maguire's activities in the 1860s. They wanted to organize mine workers' union to improve the wages and the working conditions. Father Daniel Ignatius McDermott, a Roman Catholic priest, cursed the land in retaliation for being assaulted by 3 members of the Molly Maguires. Father McDermott said that there would be a day when St. Ignatius Roman Catholic Church would be the only structure remaining in Centralia. Bold claim, but ultimately he was wrong. That is the St. Ignatius Cemetery, and pretty positive that this is the plot of land that the church was located on. In 1877, the Molly Maguires leaders were hanged, and that ended their reign of terror in this area. Legends say that a few Molly Maguire descendants still lived in Centralia up until the 1980s. So the fire started in 1962, basically right here. This is covered up now, but it used to be the town's landfill. There are a couple theories on how the fire starts, although no one knows for sure. The first is that Centralia Borough Council hired 5 members of the volunteer fire company to clean up the town landfill. It was located here next to the Oddfellows Cemetery. I'll show you that on the way out. That's my 7th cemetery today since I'm doing my Halloween videos. On May 27th of 1962, the firefighters, as they had in the past, set the dump on fire and let it burn for some time. This time, though, the fire was not completely extinguished. and they theorized that an unsealed opening in the pit allowed the fire to enter the abandoned coal mine beneath Centralia. So this landfill that they were using was an abandoned strip mine, so it was already a big hole in the ground reaching down to the coal seam. So other sources claim that the fire started the previous day when a trash hauler dumped hot ash or coal discarded from coal burners into the pit. The borough was responsible for installing a fire-resistant clay barrier between each layer of the landfill, but they fell behind schedule. According to this theory, this allowed the hot coals to penetrate the coal seam underneath the pit and start the subterranean fire. The third theory posits that the Bast Colliery fire from 1932, no, this was, the main fire was not the first. There was one in 1932, and they posed that that was never fully extinguished, that it reached the landfill in 1962. However, there is a miner who disputes that, based on the fact that he and his brother were running a bootleg mine separate from the colliery and the other companies. And with where they were digging, if there was a fire underground in that area, that the noxious fumes and toxic gas would have, killed them or knocked them out or something like that. So by admitting he had a bootleg mine, that kind of proves the third theory wrong. So even though the fire started in 1962, it wasn't until 1979 that locals became aware of the scale of the problem. I think they knew it was there, they just didn't know how intense the fire was. John Coddington, who was the mayor of the town / a gas station operator, inserted a dipstick into one of his underground tanks to check the fuel levels. When he pulled it out, it was hot. So they lowered a thermometer down, and the gasoline in the tank was 172 degrees. Statewide attention came in 1981 on Valentine's Day when a 12-year-old fell into a sinkhole that opened right under him in his grandmother's backyard. The hole was 4 feet wide by 150 feet deep. This is straight out of a movie or a cartoon. He lashed out and grabbed a tree root and hung there until his cousin pulled him out of the hole to safety. The hot steam that came out of the sinkhole was tested. It was found to contain lethal levels of carbon monoxide. Shortly thereafter, in 1983, Congress allocated more than $42 million for relocation efforts. Nearly all the residents accepted their buyout offers. More than 1,000 people moved out of the town and 500 structures were razed. By 1990, there were only 63 people remaining. So the road noise you hear is from Route 61. Right now we are at arguably Centralia's most famous feature. This used to be the Graffiti Highway. While present-day Route 61 was rerouted, this used to be Route 61. This road was repaired several times until it was closed. Smoke and steam and cracking of the pavement was a very frequent occurrence. The current route was a detour that was created while they were repairing this for the umpteenth time, and then that eventually became the permanent route. This road was world famous for just being plastered with graffiti, kind of like the abandoned turnpike out west here in Pennsylvania. When they closed this, they put berms at either end of the highway. In April 2020, amidst the early part of the pandemic and a lot of vocal outrage, the property's current owners made the decision to cover up the graffiti on the highway. Several hundred mounds of dirt, and you can see all the humps. If you look at a satellite image, I'll put that up on the screen now, you can just see the humps from the satellite. There's a path here. We're headed kind of southwest, so there is kind of a path here along the left side where some of the highway is still sticking out. There are chunks that are still sticking out here. Here's another part that is sticking out, and well, I never got a chance to see it in all its glory. I mean, I don't love graffiti, but I can tell you that it hasn't really stopped people. I'm seeing a thing pointing at me up there, if you know what I'm talking about, and lots of four-letter words, and well, there's a happy little rock, I guess. So present day Route 61, Centralia is just over the hill there. Oddfellows Cemetery is out here. St. Ignatius is back here. And here on the curve with the yellow arrows is where you would access the old highway over this berm. So the underground fire here is still burning. And here's your proof. You can see the smoke rising from this vent. This is incredible. As soon as I parked my car, I could smell it. In 2006, it was predicted that the fire would burn for 250 more years. There's water all around the opening. It's a lot of steam coming out. And up on the plants up there, they all look like they have dew on them. So very steamy, very smoky. But that fire's still raging beneath my feet. So as we look up there at that steam vent, the only indications of the fire are these vents, and man-made ones also. There are 400 acres of fire underneath the ground right now, and it spreads along 4 fronts. In February of 2012, the Commonwealth Court ruled that the purpose for the condemnation no longer exists because the underground fire had moved and the air quality in the borough was the same as in Lancaster County. In 2013, the remaining 7 residents settled their lawsuit, receiving $218,000 in compensation for the value of their homes, along with $131,000 to settle additional claims, and the right to stay in their homes for the rest of their lives. So that's why there's still, at last count, 4 residents in Centralia. Happy Halloween. If you like what I'm doing, please like, subscribe, ring that bell for notifications. I'm glad that I finally got to this near ghost town in Pennsylvania. Probably the most famous of Pennsylvania's 120 some ghost towns. This was awesome. It was way overdue. I could kill hours here wandering around different streets and passages and just kind of imagining what life was like back then and what it would be like to be forced from your home. And I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you very much for coming along. See you next time.